Beginnings of agriculture. If you are there as a gatherer, you know where to find the sweetest fruits. Every summer, you eat many of these fruits, dropping the seeds on the ground. One day you return to find new plants everywhere. You realize that the plants have grown and from your dropped seeds. How could this discovery change the way of life? The first farmers. After the Middle Stone Age came the period of time that scientists call the Neolithic Era, or New Stone Age. It began as early as 10,000 years ago in Southwest Asia. In other places, this era began to much later and lasted much longer than it did there. During the New Stone Age, people learned to polish stones to make tools like saws and drills. People also learned how to make fire. Before, they could only use fire that had been started by natural causes such as lightning. The New Stone Age ended in Egypt and Southwest Asia about 5,000 years ago, when tool makers began to make tools out of metal. But tools weren't the only major change that occurred during the Neolithic era. In fact, the biggest change came in how people produced food. Plants. After a warm trend brought to an end to the ice ages, new plants began to grow in some areas. For example, wild barley and wheat plants started to spread throughout Southwest Asia. Over time, people came to depend on these wild plants for food. They began to settle where grains grew. People soon learned that they could plant seeds themselves to grow their own crops. Historians call the shift from food gathering to food producing the Neolithic Revolution. Most experts believe that this evolution or change first occurred in the societies of Southwest Asia. Eventually, people learned to change plants to make them more useful. They plant only the largest grains on the sweetest fruits. The process of changing plants or animals to make them more useful to humans is called domestication. The domestication of plants led to development of agriculture or farming. For the first time, people could produce their own food. The development changed human society forever. Animals. Learning to produce food was a major accomplishment for early people, but learning how to use animals for their own purposes was almost equally important. Hunters didn't have to follow wild herds anymore. Instead, farmers could keep sheep or goats for milk, food, and wool. Farmers could also use large animals like cattle to carry loads or to pull large tools used in farming. Using animals to help with farming greatly improved people's chances of surviving.